Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a Rune and Tarot divination for Monday, the 28th day, the last day of February 2022. Well, we have, I don't know if you can hear it over, you may, over the microphone will pick it up, but we've got really heavy winds outside right now. So if you hear odd noises, that's what it is. My husband went in and cut down a lot of the tree branches that were scraping on the house a few weeks back. And so I don't think we'll have that so much, but there's shrubs up next to the house. So you may hear something like that. So that's what that is. Anyway, I hope everybody had a good weekend. We've been watching the news and on Twitter and everything to find out what's going on in Ukraine. I guess they're sitting down today and having talks, but you know, there's really only one thing: get out of our country, right? I mean, what they've done is just horrific. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. Not real sure about that, but you know, it's just the way it is. You know, Russia does things like this evidently, and thinks they can just move in where they don't belong. So the world is responding. The world is coming together. You know, we're in this 22 energy year, basically. And we just passed the portal or the gate, or, you know, however you want to see that, the 2022 numerology. And I wrote a little something on the blog about that. If you want to go over there to Stepping Aside at imsteppingaside.com, scroll down, you'll see it. If you're interested in reading, I just said some thoughts on that, and nothing real elaborate, but to me this tells me that we're in a profound, with the 22 master number energy, you're looking at the cosmic builder. So you're looking at very, very profound soul level energy coming in, and for potential, you know, very powerful manifestation energy. So it doesn't surprise me that with this happening, that people are responding around the world, countries are responding around the world to support Ukraine. It doesn't surprise me at all. We may see a shift in perception about things like we've never seen before and during this year. There's that possibility. So just pay attention and look for these kinds of signs to show a healing and a coming back together to build anew, maybe. That could be another interpretation of that. So just watch for that. See it manifest. Hopefully you're manifesting the same in your life, and to collectively we raise the vibration of humanity to the point that we can understand that we go forward together in a much better place than if we try to harm one another in the process. So it's you know, the whole idea of harming people is being stood up against right now. And I think that we're going to see more and more of that play out over the year. So anyhow, let's go ahead and take a look at today's Esoteric Influences. Now that's gone up on the blog for the week, as has the, let's see, it's called The Ascendant, Rays, and Other Astrological Information. That's up. The weekly numerology is up, and the correspondences for Work and Magic are up. Also over on the Patreon page, you get a little more expanded view of that. I give recommendations and stuff like that over there. But anyhow, I guess that's all I really need to tell you about, other than warning you about the wind noise. Anyway, we have a 1 numerology for today. 28 reduces to 1, and it gives us new beginnings, leadership, individuality, and governance. The rune in the Esoteric Influences for today is Gebo. Gift, balance, energy exchange, link, reciprocity, and partnership are the keywords associated with Gebo. Carcer, the geomancy rune for today, is prison, isolation, attainment, outmoded ideas. It's considered evil. It's fate-oriented and restriction-oriented. The sun's in Pisces, the moon is in Aquarius, and the planetary governance today is the moon. So the moon governs Monday. So the numerology for today as well as tomorrow indicates new beginnings are possible. Gebo's influence today suggests that reciprocity is key to new partnerships forming, with Carcer suggesting the need to let go of old ideas and perceptions that limit both awareness and progress. And certainly we're seeing that happening around the world today. With the moon in Aquarius in the 11th house of friendships, you feel most secure when relationships with others are both harmonious and inspiring. However, a square between the moon and Uranus indicates that something unexpected may arise that leaves you feeling unsure of what's happening. Although you may be tempted to go it alone, realize that attitude will likely impact harmony or collaboration with others. It may be that you're feeling too exhausted to meet challenges and you would benefit from allowing others to step up and take the lead. In doing so, you may be surprised at the opportunities that arise from a different perspective. Again, you know, it all, I guess, applies to what's going on over in Ukraine, but it can also apply to our personal lives as well. I didn't write it to talk about that. I just take what I see and all of the things I'm looking at, and that's where I get it, you know. So anyway, it's just interesting how well it aligned with what's happening there. So let's get rid of that. Well, I thought I got rid of it. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and take our runes right now. Now, the runes I talked about with the esoteric influences are just for that. I do a different set here for each of the divinations on Monday and Thursday. So, although last week, you know, we had some alignment, and we did the week before with I think Birkenau. I pulled Birkenau, and Birkenau was the rune for the day, so that was interesting. Little interesting synchronicities. I love watching for those. They're just fun, aren't they? We have Thurzaz, Thor's rune. This is about opposition, and the key word is the thorn. Kind of looks like a thorn on a rose bush. But Thurzaz is considered to be Thor's rune, and so we're talking about Thor was a giant, and he was, you know, or at least a very big guy anyway. But he would break through, you know, challenges. He would. It's also he could also command the weather with it, so it's useful in weather workings. But basically, when you think about Thurzaz, you're thinking about what opposes you. You know, whether it's yourself or something else, some other force outside of yourself. Could be an individual, could be a set of circumstances, could be anything. But right now, what's coming up for this then would be something about opposition today and breaking through challenges and surviving to live another day, right? You know, we're all, it's like they come out every day and say, we survived the night. You know, it's that kind of experience. Let's not do that yet. Let's do the geomancy rune. But in terms of the as above, so below aspect of this reading, Thurzaz as an Elder Futhark rune would be the above side. So you're looking at breaking through challenges from with spirit informing that rather than ego informing it. Now we'll see what the ego side or form side of things are today with the geomancy runes. Let's put them in order. Well, there we're looking, I believe, at Acquisitio. So that's gain. But how are we gaining? Let's see, that's a missio. That's the opposite of it. Well, it's here somewhere. If not, I'm just going to turn Acquisitio or Missio upside down and show you. Oh, there it is. There's basically 8 runes in geomancy, but there's actually 16, and but it comes down to 8. You're looking at both sides of the same coin with 8 of them. So with Acquisitio you have gain, and then if you turn it the other way, then you have a missio, which is loss. So that's what I mean about there's actually just 8 if you look at things in terms of wholeness. But here we have Acquisitio, which is gain, success. So we can look through this. It doesn't necessarily have to be the ego side of things. It can just be the side of physical form. So you're looking at spirit versus form. Oftentimes it expresses as ego. You can look at that as, are you going to use your power to gain in a way that you shouldn't? And then, or are you going to use higher awareness to break through challenges so that you can then regain, control or success or a positive outcome. So kind of two different ways to look at this today in terms of acquisitio. But I really think that right now it's likely about how are we looking at the things that oppose us or the obstacles in our path, and are we looking at it from a higher perspective, and then are we going to take that higher perspective and then infuse that into whatever decisions we have to make so that we can then regain control of our lives or regain success or a positive outcome for something. So we'll have that then, at least so far, we'll have that as a significator for the reading. And we'll, let me just shuffle a little bit more here. And then we'll go ahead and take our first 3 cards. Maybe that's all we'll have, we'll see. But if we need more, we'll take them. But again, I think that Thurisaz can also represent the cosmic builder numerology, the 22. How are you going to come in and reshape your world? Uruz is another one. Whoops, I dropped a card. Uruz is another one, it's the second rune of the Elder Futhark, and Thurisaz is the third. The card I dropped, just remember this, New Journey. 6 of we'll put that on the bottom. The 6 of Swords. Shift in perception is another interpretation for that. But how are we going to manifest our world? How are we going to manifest our shared path here? Because as much as it feels individual, in truth, it's not. If we are indeed expressions of the Creator focused into form, then there really is only one energy. Then it's really true that the Creator is all that is. And if that Creator is all that is, then all we are just aspects of the Creator. So we're really no more separate or individuals, or individuated, I guess you could say. It's just an illusion. It may appear that way, but in reality, the soul, the oversoul, is trying to find its harmony and to reestablish that truth. And so that's probably why we see so many countries in alignment with, and countries that you wouldn't think would do that are actually in alignment with and supporting Ukraine. So, we're seeing this play out, this concept play out on the world stage, essentially. And it looks like we're getting it, which is an improvement, don't you think? But let's see what we have today. Well, this is interesting. We have the Empress, we have the 2 of Cups, and we have the 4 of Pentacles. It feels like I need to move these cards around, but let's just see here. Maybe not. But I guess we can start with the Empress, though. Let's take a look at her first, and then I think we can just leave them in the order they are, and we'll just maybe talk about them differently. Maybe, I don't know. But let's start with the Empress. 3rd card of the major, or I should say card 3 of the major arcana. We see the goddess as the Empress. Her beautiful crown of stars there, or of actually, I think they're actually Merkabahs, but this is a very spiritual card. We see the glyph of Venus on her heart-shaped shield. She represents love, fertility, the mother aspect of self, the womb, abundance, receptivity, beauty, and success. We see abundance all around her. We see the grass growing. We see the trees all beautiful and full. She holds a scepter in her right hand. But being the card of 3, you start out with the card 0, the Fool, that takes the leap into form. So there's your undeveloped potential. Then the Magician and the High Priestess come in and essentially manifest both consciousness and the subconscious or unconsciousness aspects of self. And then we come together with the Empress, who then gives birth to creation, basically. And note that the Emperor is after her. So she doesn't need him to create. None of us need anybody else to create our world and our experiences. And she does it with love. She does it with goddess presence. There's the Emperor comes after. And in some decks, it shows him looking back at her. So he's really her consort. I don't see him necessarily as her equal. He brings in the concept of authority, but I don't see him on the same level as I do the Empress. I think it begins all with her after the establishment of the and I think the triumvirate there is not doesn't include the Emperor. I don't. I think that the whole triplicity of the three, it is basically about the magician, the high priestess, and the Empress. After what they do, she's now able to give birth to creation. So it's a very, very powerful energy. So what are we going to give birth to today? If we're talking about Thor's rune, Thursaz, what kinds of challenges are we going to break through? What kinds of perceptions are we going to let go of so that we can move forward in this strong 22 creation energy? Okay. Now we move on then to the 2 of Cups. We see, and we had this last week, this is a card of healing, of reciprocity, of love, of exchange. You can look at it in terms of polarity within, but you can also look at it in terms of healing something between you and someone else. But we see here the projective side of self. If we first want to talk about this as polarity, we see the masculine side of self stepping toward the feminine side of self. So the projective stepping forward to the receptive. And you can see here, he's reaching out a hand and offering while they both extend 2 cups, 2 chalices to each other, right? And above here, we have the caduceus in between, and we have the winged lion above on this 2 card of balance. 2 is about balance and love and reciprocity. It's also about healing. And it's like they have stepped away with this line of demarcation here. They have stepped away from their lives to step out of what's going on, the circumstances that are going on, and come out into another area where they can then reach to one another. Well, at least he's reaching to her. So you can look at this as the aggressor reaching out in peace and harmony to the person who's oppressed. You could look at it that way. If this reflects, say, a disagreement between you and a partner, it could be that one side that's really pushing their view is stepping back and saying, you know what, I'm sorry. Let's look at this a little more in balance. I want to hear what you have to say. It could mean something like that. So realistically, you can look at this from 2 standpoints. You can either look at the inner work we each have to do in order to raise our vibration up to spirit, so spirit guides our hand and our choices and our path and our perceptions. Or, because that's the receptive side of self, that's really what that is. Or, again, you can look at it in terms of some kind of interaction you're having with someone else that needs to be healed. And the energy's right today to do that. Again, on the world stage, I think you know who's who here. But this is really a card of healing and bringing things back into balance, so that we can look at things realistically instead of, we get with our perceptions. I had someone tell me one time, and it was really about her husband, that he had done something that how she saw this. And I agree with her to a point, but there was more she could have done, I think, in my opinion. But to stop him maybe, or to, scream at him and say, stop it, wives do have an influence, And so, but the point is that he got something in his head, and he was so focused on it that he couldn't let it go. And he ended up causing all kinds of problems because of it. Problems that could have gotten them sued, could have, done anything, right? I mean, none of that happened, but they were very lucky because he got going on something that he couldn't stop. And so sometimes I look at this card and I think of that because it really demonstrates how perception can take hold. and have it not be based in any kind of reality at all other than the agenda that that person wants, right? And so that's why I think that it's significant with this card that you have the masculine side of self here reaching toward the feminine. Because it's generally that gets out of control, right? It's the Mars side of things, not the Venus side of things, right? So it's the Mars energy that runs amok, and the Mars energy is what's really aligned with the ego and expression of ego. And whether or not you're going to be able to get a hold of that, right? Before things get so out of balance that then an apology needs to happen, or consequences happen, or things happen that are totally outside your control. And you're standing there going, wow, how'd that happen? Well, you did it, you know, so I don't know. Look within, right? But the Thursaz energy got too strong, the negative side of it is like you're destroying things without thinking it through, kind of thing. So I think that a 2 energy card, irrespective of what it is a really powerful energy. And I think that in terms of the 2 of Cups, you know, Cups is the water element. It's our emotions, it's compassion, it's understanding. And I really think that that comes out very clearly here. That something has happened, and the guy is like, yeah, I'm sorry. You know, is really, I think, the simplest way to read the card. So again, you know, we have the Empress energy that's governing all of it. You know, what are we going to create? What are we going to manifest in this 22 year? Are we going to manifest something that builds trust and hope and compassion and unity? Or are we just going to let it all devolve into madness and someone's personal agenda? Because you can see how destructive that is. Then we have this guy. Now, the 4 of Pentacles is interesting. We have a king, and depending on how you see this, again, we have another line of demarcation here. He's standing out away, or sitting out away from the kingdom. Behind him, his back is to the kingdom. Now, this is an interesting thing. Typically, this card is read as miserliness. And of hanging on to, the king is hanging on to all of his wealth, typically at the expense of the kingdom. But then, I don't know, it was a couple of months back, a few months back, where the cards suggested something else. The rest of the cards in the reading suggested something else. Because you can't just look at these cards individually. You have to look at how they interact with the rest of the reading, right? Well, this is the king protecting his kingdom. 4 is about structure and foundation, order, grounding. It can also be about material security. And so if you looked at this from what's happening over in Ukraine, in a lot of ways, you've got all these other countries giving the king, if you will, the president of Ukraine, money to fight, and also goods, weapons, arms, whatever, to fight against the oppressor of Russia. So here he is standing there, standing guard. He didn't leave the country. He didn't go to safety. We offered. He said, no, I need weapons. I need javelins, you know. So in a way, what he's doing is he's collecting all of that, and he's basically doing what he has to do for the security of his country. And I'm referencing that one reading I did a few months back, where that's essentially what was happening here. The individual in power was amassing all of this security for the kingdom behind him, and it's not about him, you know, as this is typically read, but in truth he was taking care of his country. So the wealth involved then here, if it's a spiritual type of a wealth, it's being willing to come together and help someone else in need. And not leaving and not fleeing the country with all the wealth, as you know, you've started something and now you're going to run away, kind of thing. That's not what I'm feeling about this, especially in terms of healing. So if you look at this also suggests something other than the individual with the kingdom behind him. So we have people in power that are willing to to protect the security of their nation, perhaps, if you want to look at it that way. But you can look at it in terms of, what are you doing to protect the security of your family? You know, are you being flagrant with your money so that there's no food on the table, you know, for your children? There's that. The Four of Pentacles is often called miserly. The keynote there is miserliness, hanging tight on to what you have, and not sharing it with other people. Particularly because his back is to the kingdom. But in that reading before, he was gathering what he needed to have to protect the kingdom in that reading. So I have to think that whether it's, you know, finances, financial security, or coming together, in other words, the kind of security that coming together in unity when there's a threat, a collective threat, coming together and helping people out, that could be what this is all about as well. We have a pattern here of 2, 3, and 4. So there's a progress. So if we wanted to put the 2 first, we come together in healing. We manifest something new in love and unity and all of that, to where we can protect one another. As we break through challenges toward, you know, some collective gain with acquisitio. Sound good? I don't know. Anyway, that's one way to read this. I realize that I'm kind of jumping around in terms of inner versus really, really outer with, you know, what's going on in the world right now. But I think that, you know, if you have issues in your life where things need to be healed and people need to come back together and do so for the safety and security of and protection of the family or of relationships that you have, I think that, you know, you can look at that 4 as valuing the collective security we can share together, the collective foundation that we have together, that we may not even be thinking about at this moment. You know, we may be thinking about, you know, all of the division that's been between us. And I would suggest that we're being given an experience to watch. We're watching something unfold on the world stage that we can then give us some pause and think about that if we are indeed not aligned with other people in our lives, if there's a lot of anger between family members, if there's a lot of division, you know, between you and your friends, and it's like, well, I can't talk to this person anymore. You know, there's been a lot of that going on. With whether you're talking about the pandemic or the last, you know, political administration and all of the damage that did to people's relationships, you know, we've just been going through a lot of stuff, you know, where we're having to, it's like we pull apart, but then we realize, no, we've got to come together. And how do you do that, you know? And I think that in this 2022 year, I really think that the energy's just there for people to reconsider and come back together and heal the relationships that have come apart over the last few years. Again, what we're seeing unfold on the world stage right now can be a window into that. There can be lessons there where you really see the need that when a true threat arises, like what's happening now, that's going to affect the whole world, you see. It's not just going to affect Ukraine. It's going to affect everything. And we can't do that to one another. We can't try to harm one another. We need to be able to speak up and stand up for what's right and to understand the bigger picture. And we can't be afraid to do that. In other words, we can't be afraid to stand up to the giant in the room, you know, that is doing things that can cost other people in the long run. You know, they're just thinking about themselves. They don't care about anybody else. They're just thinking about themselves. And so with the 2 of Cups, I think it gives us a chance to heal that imbalance there that's existing. And so that we understand that there's a greater situation that matters, and that you can destabilize that in a very short amount of time. You know, sometimes you can do it with a word even, you know. So I think that if, you know, with the Empress, we're really talking about creation energy and manifestation energy. And in this 2022 year, I think the time is now for us to shift our perceptions to a higher level of awareness, so that we can then make decisions that bring people back together, instead of allowing all this weird, you know, volatile division that's going on. You know, where people are willing, if you stand up for yourself, people come in and they try to harm you for it, you know. So even if it's just down to, I'm going to continue to wear a mask because I have a compromised immune system, maybe, and someone else decides to come up and yell at you for it. It's like, well, leave them alone, you know. There's a reason why they're doing it. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with their own, you know, issues in their own body. So, you know, just let them be, I guess. I don't know. But you can see how that whole idea can play out in our lives, you know, in all sorts of ways. So anyway, that's all I have for today. Again, check out the stuff on the blog, and over on Patreon, I published something over on Medium as well. You can check all that out. And come back on Thursday. If you haven't clicked subscribe yet, I'd love you to do that and join our little tarot and rune family here. But, you know, think about this stuff, see if it applies to your life. Maybe nothing will come up for you today, but maybe tomorrow it will. Where something will come up and you'll say, oh, I remember she said that. You know, maybe that's important to pay attention to. So anyway, I'm not really about predictions here. As you know, I'm just really about talking about the energies at work in the readings that I have, and just to kind of give you some insight into things that maybe you didn't think about before. So anyway. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming by. And be good to yourself. Be good to one another. And blessed be.